How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello, America. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. And boy, am I glad to have you with me today. The phone number, 877-973-7425. It's an open line Friday, but I'm probably about to make some of you mad. So I just told Charlie, keep the phone lines closed for a little while because some of your tempers are going to have to settle down here. We need to talk about Matt Gaetz a little bit more. I didn't want to, but we got to. I had two ladies accuse me of gaslighting everybody, which I do actually take a little bit of offense at. Last Thursday on this program, I pointed out a couple of things about why Matt Gaetz's nomination to be Attorney General was genius. It took Matt Gaetz out of the House of Representatives, where no one wanted him there. He would not have the votes to get confirmed by the United States Senate, and it shut down the ethics report on him. By taking him out of the House, it shut down the ethics report on him. You know, interestingly enough, here's the thing. We're going to be able to see just how serious the actual allegations are because technically Matt Gaetz resigned from this Congress. And he's a congressman-elect for the next Congress. And legally, according to a bunch of lawyers, because Ron DeSantis has not actually called for a special election yet, Matt Gaetz could go back to Congress on January 3rd as the congressman for his congressional district. Now, if he actually does that, well, then maybe the ethics report's not so bad. If he decides he's done with Congress, I think we can suggest the ethics report probably had some damning stuff in it, and by getting gone, he got rid of it. So, yeah, the Matt Gaetz ploy was genius. It got him out of the House where nobody wanted him. It keeps him out of the Attorney General's office where the Senate wasn't going to vote to do that for him, and it blocked the report. But those were the effects. They weren't the intentions, and I said this last week. And so I've been ridiculing all the people claiming this was some bold 4D chess play, and people on Twitter like, you're gaslighting us. We heard you talking about the genius last week. You clearly, you heard what you wanted to hear and not what I actually said, because I made very clear in my monologue last week and in my writings, including a nationally syndicated column, that the effects and the intention weren't the same thing. Donald Trump wanted Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. And the problem here is people have gotten stupid. The number of people who call this program to explain to me that Donald Trump is a genius and this is a 4D chess play, that somehow or another he really wanted Pam Bondi. You didn't have to have Matt Gaetz to get Pam Bondi. No one was going to object to Pam Bondi being the Attorney General pick, even if Matt Gaetz hadn't been picked. The theory, so there are two competing theories. The first theory is that you needed Matt Gaetz to be the nominee. So he would say, oh, my God, this is terrible. Give us someone else. Okay, here's someone worse than Matt Gaetz. And you're going to say, oh, this person's so much better than Matt Gaetz. We'll confirm him. You didn't need that with Pam Bondi. There was no reason to go through the kabuki theater of Matt Gaetz in order to get Pam Bondi. And the other brilliance, and there's a genius who came after me on social media last night when I was ridiculing this idea of 4D chess. He's like, you don't understand. This greases the skids for Pam Bondi. And someone other than me says, you really actually are arguing that he needed to nominate Matt Gaetz first in order to get someone like Pat Bondi? And the guy says, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. You literally had just tweeted that it greased the skids for Pam Bondi, but now you're doing this 3-card Monty where you're shuffling everything around to try to always win an argument that you're too stupid to actually make. And he says, this is actually, it makes it easier for Pete Hegseth and Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. By having Gaetz out there, it actually makes it easier to confirm these three. There's just a problem with the logic. Matt Gaetz didn't last a week. You would have some credibility for the argument that this was 4D chess had Matt Gaetz not withdrawn less than 7 days after his nomination. The confirmation hearing, you do understand the confirmation hearings aren't going to start until January, right? Having Matt Gaetz withdraw less than a week later accomplishes no 4D chess move. Pam Bondi did not need to have Matt Gaetz nominated for people to say Pam Bondi's a good pick. Pam Bondi's an objectively good pick. Overwhelmingly, the Republican members of the Senate and even some of the Democrats, they're going to vote against her, but they don't have the objections they have to Matt Gaetz. They never would have had those. She's a pro forma pick almost, if you will. I don't mean that in a negative way. She's just a highly competent, conservative attorney general. She could have been the first pick, and Donald Trump wouldn't have had to expend a week spending political capital to try to save Matt Gaetz. This is the larger point here, and it goes to Dahlia Lithwick as well. Dahlia Lithwick is a dim-witted progressive writer, broken by Trump, as some Trump supporters are, who actually penned a piece last week after the Gaetz nomination. Here's the headline: "The Senate will absolutely confirm Matt Gaetz." And the subtitle: "If you think these Republicans are going to stand up to Donald Trump, you've not been paying attention." Dahlia Lithwick is a very progressive writer. She hates the conservatives on the Supreme Court. She writes, "We are now engaged in what we in the press like to call a spirited debate about the confirmation prospects of one Matt Gaetz, the galactically unqualified, incredibly accused sexual predator, to be the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. During Donald Trump's first term in office, Gaetz was embroiled in a lengthy sex trafficking investigation involving a minor opened under Attorney General Bill Barr. He has now narrowly avoided learning the results of a House Ethics Committee probe over those same allegations, including sexual misconduct. All that considered, of course it makes sense that this would come down to an apprentice-style nail-biter as to whether he can garner the votes necessary to be confirmed to the job of running the organization that was once investigating him. And since Gaetz has not a scintilla of expertise or experience necessary to run the massive law enforcement agency, it stands to reason that the only urgently important question facing the nation is whether 4 Republican senators might dig deep and find it within themselves to say as much. If you care about such things, there are loads of senatorial quotes to be mined for meeting." But the bottom line is there's no way the Senate Republicans will ever stand up to Donald Trump. They will give him the cabinet pick. She ends, "We've entered the stage of Trumpist collapse in which people who seek to harm those seen as insufficiently loyal are being promoted over those with actual skills or vision or politics. Matt Gaetz is the open threat of violence and targeted prosecution that follows a refusal to take seriously the veiled threat of violence and targeted prosecution. They broke it. They bought it far too late to suggest they can return what he will be selling." And yet, they stood up to him. Progressives and some Trump supporters together, they've all had their brains broken by Donald Trump. He's either the smartest man to ever walk the planet or the most criminal Nazi-like thing since Adolf Hitler. Neither is true. But everybody's on team sport and everybody's emotional about it. It's like when your team sucks on the field and Carson Beck keeps throwing interceptions, like, oh, it's the refs. The refs threw the game. Having a not very good quarterback. No, we got to call him the greatest quarterback ever. He's somehow some genius, Mensa level quarterback who keeps throwing interceptions, losing to Ole Miss for God's sakes, but somehow genius. It's all 4D chess. It's the same thing with Donald Trump. It's the same thing. It's always the refs. It's always the other side. It's somebody else to blame. It's never that, he wanted Matt Gaetz. He wanted Matt Gaetz because according to the best sourced people, he decided that the other guys would not be his agent. They would have an independent streak for the attorney general, and he didn't want that because he had it with Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr. He wanted his guy, his loyal guy, and Matt Gaetz was a loyal SOB, and he wanted that loyal SOB. The effects were, as I said, gets him out of the House. He's not going to get confirmed, all that, but that's not the intention. And after a week, Donald Trump said, you know what? It's not worth the fight. We got other fights to pick. And Matt Gaetz withdrew after Donald Trump told him to stand down and withdraw his nomination. People always make way too much of the happenings in Donald Trump's orbit. His supporters always think there's some super brilliant secret Hail Mary pass that's going to work. And his detractors believe that there's no thought, there's guttural reaction, and everyone's going to bend to his will because no one's willing to stand up to Donald Trump. 12 senators, at least, stood up to Donald Trump and privately made sure, including Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, that there's no way Gaetz had the votes. So he stepped down. Now, there are a lot of people who have speculated that, the House Ethics Committee really wasn't that bad. This was all pretext and there was subtext. House Ethics Committee really isn't that bad. If Matt Gaetz tries to go back into the House as a congressman-elect into the next Congress without there being a special election, that ethics report comes back. So Gaetz can do it legally. Ron DeSantis hasn't called a special election yet. As a result, Gaetz could change his mind. They could retract his resignation. Never been done before. But Matt Gaetz is a man without shame. He could do it. Or maybe the ethics report really is pretty damning and he doesn't want it to come out. And the House has decided it's not going to come out since he's not a member of Congress. That's their rule. When a member of Congress steps aside before a House Ethics Committee report comes out, they never release a report. They never have in the past. And even with Gaetz, 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats together decided not to do it. Only 1 Democrat on the House Ethics Committee voted to release the report, as far as we know. But everyone wants to conflate all these things into some sort of 4D chess. And if I tell you the truth and you misunderstand me, I'm gaslighting you. I'm not gaslighting you. I'm trying to help you understand what's going on. I've got really good sources, whether you want to believe it or not. But there are too many people who have turned their hatred of Trump or their love of Trump into something emotional, and reason breaks down with these people. Look, I don't like Trump. I get it. But the amount of people who tell me I can't process something because I have Trump derangement syndrome, I'm not deranged by Donald Trump. I know what he is. I supported him. I gave him money. Many of the people who attacked me never gave him a penny. But I can navigate what's going on because I have great sources in his orbit, in the Senate, in the House. I can call him. I can talk to him. And yet people want to imagine things. If it's 4D chess, he wouldn't have dropped out in less than a week when confirmation hearings don't start until January. And to those of you on the left who are already speculating, I see the Bulwark guys are already running a fundraiser that Donald Trump could stay past 2028. Donald Trump could stay in office. Someone could make him vice president and then he could push him out and become president again. It could happen. No, it can't happen under the plain text of the United States Constitution. It can't happen, but you're trying to fundraise off of it. Everybody has turned this into a grift. The amount of people who are making money off Donald Trump, there are more people making money off Donald Trump than Donald Trump is making off of Donald Trump right now, scaring people on both sides. I'm a very bad grifter. All I can do is tell you what's going on and make you smarter and more informed than the rest of your friends. And then some people get mad at me for telling them what's actually happening and then accuse me of gaslighting because they misunderstood my point. And then they get insulted and upset. And all I can do is try to tell you guys what's happening. And what's happening is Donald Trump wanted Matt Gaetz to be his attorney general, thought that he could threaten the senators with primaries by Elon Musk. And they stood up to him. And now he's got a really good attorney general. Pam Bondi's going to be a great pick, and she'll get confirmed. And now, because it wasn't a 4D pick, there's plenty of time to focus on getting rid of people like Kennedy, which pro-lifers should be doing. Greetings, welcome, I should say, when I turn the microphone on. Give Jim a heart attack over there as I start talking. What's going on? The phone number here, it's an open line Friday. We'll open the phone lines now, 877-973-7425, should you wish to be on the program. I got to ruffle feathers with friends right now. I actually am kind of horrified at the silence of the pro-life community over the idea of putting a pro-abortion progressive in charge of 1/4 of the federal budget. Robert Kennedy Jr. believes the government should not restrict, regulate abortion through birth. Whether you say it's state level or not, Robert Kennedy Jr., if he's Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services, will oversee 1/4 of the entire federal budget. And he will oversee drug authorizations. He will oversee restrictions. He will oversee hospital regulations. He will oversee many, many things. And the pro-life community, instead of fighting Robert Kennedy Jr.'s pick, has decided, well, we'll put some people underneath him. He's going to be the head of HHS. He will be in the line of succession to the president of the United States, not the people under him. And you're okay with this? You're not willing to speak up? Here's the thing. If you're not willing to speak up as a pro-life activist against Robert Kennedy Jr., a pro-abortion gun control activist in charge of the Department of Health and Human Services, you are a paper tiger. No one's going to take you seriously, nor should anyone. If you're more worried about your seat at the table than you are actually speaking out on your values, everyone's going to know you're a cheap date. You've got a bunch of Republican senators that you could be pressuring to reject Robert Kennedy Jr. Matt Gaetz is out of the way. He's not a distraction. You should be training your fire. So should the gun activists, by the way. The Second Amendment activists, you should be trying to stop a gun control activist from being in charge of 1/4 of the federal budget. I am really appalled at the social conservatives out there who, because Robert Kennedy Jr. agreed with you on COVID and red dye number 5, you're willing to sell out the rest of your long-held principles on life and the Second Amendment because you don't want to anger Donald Trump. You're afraid you won't get a seat at the table. If you're that afraid of giving up a seat at the table, you don't have one to begin with because they know they don't have to take you seriously. If you fight and try to win and signal every one of these appointments like this is going to be a fight, they're not going to fight you because time is more precious for them than you. So fight and end the nomination of Robert Kennedy. Now, let me tell you, my new Eden Pure Thunderstorm, it is fantastic and it works. And not only does it kill bacteria and viruses, it eliminates odors, gets rid of pet dander, it gets rid of pollen, it gets rid of dust in the air with electrostatic plates. It is fantastic. And you can get 3 of them still and save $200 and get them for less than $200, even though they're new and improved, by going to EdenPureDeals.com and putting in the discount code ERIC3. ERICK, the number 3, at EdenPureDeals.com. You'll get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. They really do eliminate all the odors. There's not an odor that can stand up to it. And now it generates plasma that latches onto bacteria and viruses and eliminates them as well. So it cleans and purifies the air. And it gets rid of dust, pollen, and dander. Get 3 of them upstairs, downstairs, your basement, travel bag. You can hold them in your hand wherever you need them. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. Hello, my fellow Americans. How are you? The phone number here, 877-973-7425. If you'd like to be on the program, I got to thank you guys. We raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to help feed people in need this holiday season. You guys did it, not me. Thank you. Thank you very much. What a generous audience. You guys are a real blessing to me. So thank you very much. We've spent a lot of time on the Trump stuff. We got to spend some time on the Biden stuff, because there are a number of problems. One of which is there's a report in the New York Post. The Biden administration is lowering the standards for admission of illegal aliens into this country. They're processing people faster. Now, I want to step back. And I want to call your attention to a graphic that a website put up, sanctuary regions of the United States. And among those are California, New York, Illinois, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware. There are portions of some states, Colorado, Utah. How is Utah a sanctuary state? North Dakota. How is North Dakota a sanctuary state? Oregon and Washington. You know what a lot of those places have in common is they're losing population we know from the census numbers in 2030. California, New York, Illinois, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, they're losing population in the census. All these are reliably blue areas of the country, and they're losing population according to the census. So by 2030, California, for example, will lose 4 seats in the Congress, which means their electoral college vote will go down by 4. Texas's will go up by 4. If you get rid of all the illegal aliens in the country, California could lose 8 seats given their population of illegal aliens. Remember, the census counts everyone in the United States, not just citizens. And congressional apportionment is based on that number, not citizens. So the census counts citizens, resident aliens, and illegal aliens. The only thing the census doesn't count are transient visitors. So if someone comes over to the country for a month and then goes home, they're not counted. But if you're here, if you reside in the United States, citizen or not, legal or illegal, you're counted. And then that number determines the number of seats in the House of Representatives you get. And then your electoral college vote is the number of seats you have in the United States House plus 2. So if you have 50 seats, or in California's case, you have 52 seats in the United States House of Representatives, you have 54 members of the Electoral College, 52 plus 2. Why 2? Because that's your number of senators. Your Electoral College is your number of members of Congress plus your 2 senators. Georgia, for example, has 16 Electoral College votes because Georgia has 14 members of the U.S. House and 2 members of the U.S. Senate. And every state has 2 members of the Senate. So these states that are propping up these sanctuary cities, they're padding their numbers in Congress and the Electoral College and for government benefits. Because when the government block grants money, they block grant based on the census data as well. So the more people you have, the more money you get. That's what they're doing. The Biden administration here at the end is opening the floodgates for as many illegal aliens to come into the country. And then what's happening separate from that is members of the press are running fear scenarios on behalf of the Democrats that if you allow these people, or if the government deports these people, everyone's going to starve to death because no one's going to pick the crops. Grandmothers are going to die. It's simply not true. It's simply not true. But they don't care about the truth. They care about scaring people. They care about lying. They care about telling you the Democrats' narrative. And they want to do that to win elections. Neither side these days is particularly committed to the truth. They're committed to their story. They'll leave out facts for you to believe their side of the story. And the left has so much of the media to help them. The left has ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the USA Today. About the only conservative paper, slightly so, is the Wall Street Journal, and its reporters lean to the left. Its editorial page just happens to be conservative. And the problem isn't just illegal immigration. The Biden administration has realized there's still a lot of money outstanding from the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the Green New Deal, and the Microchips Act, or the CHIPS Act, that'll allow the repatriation of microchip building facilities in this country. And they are working to spend every penny before they leave. They want no money left for Donald Trump to be able to spend or stop spending. Now, there was a law passed during the Nixon administration. In fact, if there's one thing Republicans should do, is there's a law that was passed in the Nixon administration when Richard Nixon decided not to spend some money. And Congress passed a law, overrode Nixon's veto. And the law said that if Congress appropriates money, the executive shall spend it. So the Biden administration is hiding behind this law saying, well, we shall spend the money. And they've rushed out to spend as much money as they possibly can before the Trump administration comes in. But wait, it's not just illegal aliens, and it's not just spending money. They're also rushing to get as many arms into the hands of the Ukrainians because they're convinced Donald Trump is going to stop sending armaments to Ukraine. And here's a problem. As you know, I support Ukraine. But there are common sense ways to support and insane ways to support, and the Biden administration at the end has chosen the insane way. Here's the thing. So here's the way the situation has been structured with Ukraine is we loan them money. The loans are guaranteed not just by Ukraine but by Europe. So if Ukraine faults, Europe agreed they'll pay us back the money. Ukraine then takes that money and sends it back to our arms manufacturers who send them weapons. Or what Ukraine does is it takes our money and it buys weapons, NATO weapons from Poland and Germany and the Czech Republic and Great Britain. And then those countries send money to us and say, hey, we need new arms. We sold ours to Ukraine. And then after our companies have gotten the money from Ukraine for the weapons, either directly or indirectly through these other countries, then Ukraine still pays the money back to the United States government because it's a loan. Two problems with this approach now. The Biden administration has announced they want to see if legally they can forgive the loan payment so that it's not a loan. That's improper. They shouldn't be able to do this. Congress structured it as a loan. The executive should not be able to forgive the loan. They want to see if they can forgive the loan. The other thing they're doing, and the far more dangerous thing they're doing, is they're not waiting for Ukraine to purchase the weapons. They're sending the weapons. Pay us back later. Here's everything you have. We got to get out the door, 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 out the door. Get it all out the door before Trump comes in. The problem is in doing so, they're lowering our stockpiles of weapons. Now, this had been a complaint from people all along this was going to happen, and it wasn't so much of a big deal because of the way they were flowing the money, the rate of exchange, the rate of armaments to Ukraine. But they've sped it up so much to get all the weapons and money out the door before Trump comes in that they actually are depleting our stockpiles of weapons now. All the stuff people warned about before wasn't really happening, and now it is because they're rushing. They're undermining our national security to help Ukraine. They're undermining our national debt and deficit to help Ukraine. I support helping Ukraine, but not like this. This is this is playing with fear. You know, Donald Trump actually was willing to give Ukraine weapons when he was president, and it was the Democrats that blocked it. Donald Trump was willing to defend Ukraine against Russia, and it was the Democrats that stopped him. Donald Trump was willing to work with Ukraine, and the Democrats said no. All the things the Democrats tell you about how pro-Russia Donald Trump is, Donald Trump was harder on Russia than Barack Obama was. Donald Trump imposed more sanctions on Russia, evicted more Russians from the United States, blocked more Russians from coming to the United States, and was willing to fund and give arms to Ukraine. And the Democrats blocked that last part, and now they want to scare you that he's in the pocket of the Russians. It's not true. Never has been true. And now the Biden administration is undermining our national security in ways they previously weren't. But wait, there's more. It's not just allowing illegal aliens to flood in. It's not just spending as much money as they can get away with before Trump comes in. It's not just trying to give as many munitions to Ukraine before Trump comes in. It's also they're not helping the Israelis. They've slowed down aid for Israel. They're complicating that situation to leave a quagmire in the Middle East for Donald Trump to deal with. But wait, it's not just that. They're also rushing through last-minute regulations, although that one they've slowed down, and this is why. There's an act in Congress that Bill Clinton agreed to back when Clinton was president. They passed a law that said if an administration is rushing regulations in the last 6 months of an administration, the new Congress, by majority vote of each house without a filibuster, can repeal those regulations. So what the Biden administration very smartly did, it was one of the signs people pointed to thinking, realizing they're not sure they can pull this election off, is they rushed a lot of their regulations at the beginning of this year before the time frame for that that veto measure. I forget exactly what it's called now. I used to know, and now all of a sudden it slipped my mind. But there's a deadline, and regulations enacted before the deadline can't be repealed bypassing the filibuster with a majority vote. But those after the deadline, 6 months, like it begins like June of the year of a presidential election. Any regulation that's enacted thereafter, if that president loses, the incoming administration working with the Congress can repeal any regulation by majority vote. It can't be filibustered. Rescission of regulation. So the Biden administration, though they're pushing, they're trying to overwhelm the system, although not as much as Obama did, to get in some regulations, thinking that maybe there won't be the votes there by the Republicans to get rid of them. They're trying to cause a series of messes for Donald Trump to have to deal with, abroad and at home. And the most damning is decreasing security at the border weaker than it already was, so they can fill up these sanctuary states with illegal aliens to pad their numbers for the 2030 census. Get these people settled, get them to start having families before the 2030 census, and they'll pad the numbers so they won't lose any representation in Congress. That's where we're headed with the Biden administration. Now I want you to head to oldglorybank.com and sign up today for a checking account, sign up today for a savings account. They do loans, they do mortgages, car loans, CDs, you name it. For businesses, they have great business checking. They've got great business options, great business loans as well. All you got to do is go to oldglorybank.com. Oldglorybank.com. It really is my bank. I've got a no-fee checking and a no-fee savings account. Now, I've got the basic checking with them. You can actually get a checking account that has more options. They're just fees with it, but you can do that. You can get a savings account with a great interest rate. You can get CDs. You start working with them, start banking with them. They do mortgages, home loans, car loans, lines of credit, you name it, equity loans. They're a full-service bank. You can even deposit cash. Unlike every other online bank out there, with Old Glory Bank, you can deposit cash. And if you're a business, you're not going to have your account canceled because you're conservative. This is a bank by conservatives for conservatives. All you have to do is go to oldglorybank.com. oldglorybank.com. You can fill out the application. That's how I did it. Filled it out online. Took less than 8 minutes to do. oldglorybank.com. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you're buying a building, if you are building a building, if you are needing a heavy equipment loan for your business, First Liberty Building and Loan's been helping businesses since the 90s. It's the same family, the Frost family, friends of mine who have been doing this for that long. They are great people. It is a great business. And if your business is looking to grow and you're tired of dealing with the lenders you've been dealing with, reach out to them. First Liberty Building and Loan is at firstlibertyga.com. You get their contact info at firstlibertyga.com. Well, there is some news happening now. Matt Gaetz has announced he will not return to Congress next year. He will not. He is giving up his seat altogether and has signaled to Ron DeSantis to go on and have that special election. That House Ethics Committee really must have had something in it for him to completely walk away from power like that. He will not be back. Meanwhile, well, the media is melting down about Pam Bondi in the same way they were with Gaetz, except they know there's nothing to stop Pam Bondi. This is Ken Delanian. He is the NBC reporter on MSNBC.
It's significant Willie and guys, because Pam Bondi was a career prosecutor down there in Hillsborough County for many, many years before she was elected Florida's first female attorney general. So she's prosecuted major cases, murders, death penalty cases. She understands how that works. Matt Gaetz had never really been much of a lawyer before he was elected to the Florida legislature. So that's a big difference. And she, at the same time, though, she is, an extreme MAGA activist and has tainted her legal career with very strong stands in favor of some questionable things.
Oh, they are not happy with her. They are not happy with her. But Eli Honig in CNN, who is the one guy on TV who's a lib who said the Trump case in New York was garbage. By the way, the judge in the Trump case in New York has indefinitely postponed sentencing and said he will take accept a motion from the Trump team to dismiss the case. This is Eli. Or Ellie.
Well, Caitlin, she's way more qualified than Matt Gaetz. Let's start with that. Last week when Matt Gaetz was announced as Trump's original pick, you and I said there's two main things you have to look at: qualification and independence. So on the first of those qualifications, Pam Bondi is, without a question, qualified to be Attorney General. She's been a prosecutor for 20 years in Florida. For 8 of those, she was the Attorney General of the state. That's a very big, very complicated job. And that level of experience is on par with or better than most United States attorneys general that we've seen over the past 50 years or so. When we get into independence, though, things get a little more complicated. Now, there's nothing wrong or unusual with an attorney general who shares the same politics and ideology as the president. That's the way these things work. But I think the big problem with Pam Bondi is she was a vocal 2020 election denier. And I think that raises legitimate questions about her independence and her credibility. And I expect that to be a sticking point when she goes in front of the Senate.
Oh, they're not happy with Pam Bondi. You didn't need 4D chess to get her, though. You could have gone with her to begin with. And she's more competent than Gaetz. She's actually managed a Justice Department. She'll know how the bureaucracy operates, unlike Matt Gaetz, and she'll know how to get things done in a way that Matt Gaetz would have had to learn on the job because he's never done something like that. She's going to be a great pick, and she will get confirmed by the Senate. The Senate Republican women will make sure of that. All right, when we come back, we got to shift. I got to go through the audit process with you of the Obama administration for a particular reason.